Eric, can you hear us?
I can, yes.
All right. I'll let you take it
Hello,
away.
Eric.
Hey, good evening. How are y'all?
Good. All right. Welcome to the February 2026 meeting on Latino Advisory Commission. Before we begin, I have a few instructions for participating in this meeting. To participate remotely, you may log into the meeting by going onto the website address listed on the meeting agenda or by calling 1-469-998-7682 and entering phone conference ID 274558202#. We ask that remote attendees remain muted unless speaking. We also ask that folks attending in person use the microphone when speaking, and to begin by first clearly identifying yourself. All approval votes will be by roll call tonight, which will be administered when the time comes. Are there any members of the public wishing to speak on the agenda? Great. Next, I will begin by asking Kevin Levancy to take a roll call of all the members.
Doing roll call. Laura Martinez,
Here.
Herman Chiriboga, Eric Diaz,
Present.
Deborah Gonzalez, Pablo Santiago, Jenny Guzman,
Present.
that is a roll call. Commissioner Diaz is the only one virtual, enough for a quorum to move forward.
Thank you, Kevin. The agenda minutes actually were not sent out. That is something that we will be reviewing on our next meeting in March. Our next meeting in March will be reviewing and approving January minutes and February minutes. So both January and February together will be approved on next meeting. Can I get a motion to approve those minutes in March for January and February?
So I'll do a roll call for that. Laura Martinez,
Yes.
Herman Chiriboga, Eric Diaz,
Yes.
Deborah Gonzalez,
Yes.
Pablo de Santiago, Jenny Guzman.
Yes.
Minutes for March will be both reviewing January and February.
Great. Thank you so much. Before we begin our meeting today, I'd like to start with some quick introductions from our panel here today. I'll start off with Jenny.
Hi, Jenny Guzman.
Thank you so much. Deborah.
I am Deborah Gonzalez.
Great. Thank you. Eric.
Eric Diaz, District 4. Happy to be here tonight.
Kevin.
Kevin Levancy, Staff Liaison.
And I'm your chair, Laura Martinez, District 2. Next, we'll be moving on to some of our commission's business. I'd like to move forward a discussion and discuss the direction of the commission as it pertains to our goals and what our future events and programs could look like.
Just to provide some feedback on that, I met with both chairs and we discussed what does looking forward, what can this commission do? So we've done a lot of different presentations and had speakers coming. But what I had requested of the chairs is how do we change that into action? So as a commission, what can we look forward to do either in the spring, in the summer, or in the fall, whether it's workshops, speakers. I guess this can be somewhat of a brainstorming session to see as a commission what can we do, right? I know a lot of our goal is to provide access and communication to the community, but how are we doing that? How are we taking the information that we have right now and providing that, whether through a programming, a workshop, or what does that look like? And obviously considering your capacity on what we're able to do.
Thank you, Kevin. Does anybody have any questions or anything they want to uplift?
I have a question through the chair. Getting used. Are we basing our ideas on any specific topic that has to do with the already done work that we have engaged with as a commission? Are those potential activities going to be connected to those discussions that we have had? And if so, are we going to go over the process of selecting which one of those are we're going to choose to start with? I know that we talked about communication, we talked about workforce. There were other points also that we talked about. I just want to go back to that if that's what we're going to be doing as a process. But if not, then, it's just kind of vague in terms of like, how are we going to define the scope of, and just be more intentional with regards to what we're going to be focusing on when thinking and brainstorming about. Is it cultural? Is it career? Is it education? Is it those types of categories?
Yeah, it's a good comment. I think speaking with both chairs, communication is what we're focusing on. How do we provide access and communication to the community on things that they might not be aware of? Some of the examples that both the chair and I had discussed, for example, are updated policy on the ICE executive order. How do we get that information out to the community? What programming might help, right? What workshop or any type of event to do that? Maybe some action type, what would that help? How do we get that out there, if that's the commission's goal?
And just to add on to some of that conversation, when we first started and we're first formalizing as a group, we hit on some buckets that were really important to all of us when it comes to communication, education, public health, health equity, et cetera. What we're trying to do is we're trying to add on to that, but we're also trying to kind of hone in on specific hot topics that are directly affecting our community so that we can really start to provide not just actionable items, but really strong recommendations up the pipeline. When we first kind of came together, we did have this visual goal of kind of hitting all those markers. However, after having extensive conversations, we need to also hone in on very specific things so that this commission can provide those recommendations to our city manager when it comes to some of these issues that are affecting the Latino community. One of which I'll be talking about in a few moments. But after having that thorough conversation with the vice chair, with Kevin, we decided that as things are coming into our forefront, we need to really hone in and really dissect what those things are and be able to provide our community with some strong, not just education and resources, but also really start to provide like these strong recommendations that the city manager is looking from this commission, and we need to really start to focus on some of those things. And you'll hear a little bit more about that in today's topics.
If I may, through the chair, I would like to ask what kind of process or way we're going to include the community voices to inform the work that we do. I would like I don't know if this would be the right word, propose, but I would like to put on the table the idea of having some kind of intentional communication with the community about how the Latino Commission is in existence, the members of the commission, the buckets of work that we are proposing to address, and then asking them what are the issues that are most pressing for them for us to advocate on their behalf.
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up. One of the things that came out of that conversation was exactly that. It's not just promoting that we meet monthly, right? It's also about engaging in conversations with other commissions that are also looking for similar outcomes. For example, today we'll have a representative from one of our commissions, Human Rights Commission, who's going to help to elevate that message because we can't just do it ourselves. So we're leading into other commissions, city council members, and other channels of communication within the city to promote what we are, what we're doing when we meet, to encourage folks to do exactly that. We can't continue to do the work if we don't hear from you. So if you're listening, please, we encourage you to just dial in. And we understand that the weather may not be favorable right now, but even if you can just dial in, chime in, obviously we'd love to see your faces, but it's starting with what we have right now. And we're leaning into other commissions that are coming out of this administration to help promote what we're doing and vice versa, to engage more of that engagement with the community, and also having conversations with city councilors in their respective districts to also encourage them to come on down and share their concerns.
If I may, through the chair, in terms of the communication piece, I guess I'm trying to understand what we're trying to do. If it's to provide information or communication to the community in terms of the services that are there in Worcester, one of the things that come to mind is partnering, with the community organizations that are already out there in Worcester and what they're doing. So I'm just thinking, I think this community kind of needs us to be informed and sort of go to them in a sense. So I know that we can have like an open policy here, but I'm wondering about partnerships with other organizations in terms of communication, getting that information out to our community would require some partnerships with organizations already serving the Latino community. I know Worcester in general are meeting to kind of come up with resources that can assist just everyone in the community. So, but maybe a piece of that would be relevant to this committee would be maybe coming up with something similar, but in a smaller scale that is just pertaining to the Latino community, making sure that it's in Spanish. Also maybe providing some sort of, I guess, I'm not sure how this would come about, but sort of like a list of all the different resources we have to offer to then communicate. And then once we have that, then how do we communicate that to them if that's the goal of the communication for the residents? Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had really good conversations in regards to how we can start to kind of organize ourselves into doing those things. One of the things that comes to mind, aside from collaborating with folks that are already doing the work, is having those options in different languages and being able to offer kind of like a menu of what it is that we're doing. Again, one of the things that we're looking to lean on as low-hanging fruit, if you will, is folks need to know that we exist, and folks need to know that we meet, and folks need to know that this is an open door policy, and we are here to serve them, and we are looking for any sort of engagement. And I think that as we continue to have these conversations and we start to invite other community members into some of our meetings, that's something that we can ask of them, like, hey, when you're out there, can you let them know the Latino Commission is here, we meet regularly. You can watch our recordings on the website anytime you'd like. You can come in, you can dial in, but definitely that's something that we are definitely considering as we start to kind of roll out the process.
Through the chair, I would like to suggest that we publicize the way of, the way to communicate with, the way to tune in into these meetings. The numbers are kind of long. There is an access number as well. And so I just would like to propose to engage in conversation with how we're going to ensure that people know how they can reach out, just tune in and being able to watch us.
Great, thank you. Any other comments? Great.
Through the chair,
Oh, yes, please, go ahead.
sorry. I think I just want to kind of echo what one of my fellow commissioners said. In terms of being able to like reach out to the community or be in the community, are we limited in being able to like hold forums in community settings, such as like the library or with like a community partner that already engages with the Latino community?
Can you repeat the last part of your statement? I couldn't hear you.
Yeah, I was just wondering if we are, in general, if we are limited at the commission to be able to hold certain forums or discussions with the public in locations that are more accessible, such as like the library or with community partners that are already engaging with the Latino community.
Through the chair, Commissioner Diaz, that's a good question. There are some restrictions in terms of how we can gather and have conversations. I can follow up on that. I think where we should focus on is how we're delivering message rather than holding meetings and holding quorum of having conversations.
Any other comments? Great. Next, I'd like to move our.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
It takes me a while to like process a question. To that, are we then limited then in how we can let people know that we're here? Like, are we limited only through this virtual platform and through people coming to City Hall? Or are there other avenues? I know someone mentioned, I don't know, or rather suggested another avenue. I was thinking maybe like an Instagram live or some sort of like live platform that people can just kind of like access rather than having to have like any codes or anything, if that was a serious issue.
Through the chair, I can tell you other boards, for example, AAC, they've done programming outside in front of the yard with other boards and commissions and other departments as well too, of just promoting like what they're about and when are the meetings, right? So it can be ideas like that. The next time we do something out on the Leon, we would put up and set up like materials for Latino affairs and what we're trying to communicate to the community.
Commissioner Diaz, does that answer your question?
Through the chair, not really, but I also don't think I stated the question appropriately, so I'm going to chew on it a bit more and I'll come back to you, but I appreciate it, Kevin.
Through the chair, if I may interject. So in my case, I don't have clarity with regards to how are we supposed to interact with the community with regards to engaging with the community. So through the chair, if we could have, maybe not today, but whenever the answer it's available, a clear notion of what it is, the scope of our outreach to community, and if there are any protocols that we are to follow in order not to breach any kind of, regulation of the way that things should happen. That obviously, I would like to include that the fact that we are not to talk among each other after meetings is one of them, and that it's something that, even though it's counterintuitive to me because it just progresses the work. I understand that it's part of the process on the way that it should be done and it's regulated. So I just want more clarity with regards to what are the parameters that we have with regards to outreaching the community directly.
Through the chair, I can provide that update at our next meeting. I'll meet with both chairs and discuss that. Just to give a little insight, we have other boards that are interacting in different ways. For example, the Status on Women, they've done actual events in Levi Lincoln before for Women's International Day. So those are some of the things I was kind of thinking about, where it's not holding quorum, but you're still doing something for the public-wise. But I can get better clarity and show you other examples of what other boards are doing, and maybe we can adopt some of those.
Any other comments? Thank you, Kevin.
Just through the chair, based on that comment, that example, then I'm thinking if we are able to hold, a programming or something here, then one of the ideas that comes to mind that would probably be the first step is some sort of, we can call it open, like an open house, like as an open discussion where we're marketing to the community that this is happening and that where we can get the voices in here to hear like what are their concerns in the community. So I think that would be one good way to try to get them, get them here, if it's not an official meeting, but more like an actual workshop or something like that. Yeah.
Through the chair, so the event that the Women on Status Commission Board had hosted, they also did it through a scholarship. So what they did is there was like 2 students that were acknowledged for a scholarship, but they also were planning on having like different vendors as well too that were women. But it wasn't really on the idea of, hey, let's come in and kind of hear your concerns. That might not fit in the scope, but those are the type of events. Like I said, I'll come back with more clarity on the parameters on that, but it was more on towards that, not more discussion-wise.
Once we have that clarity, I think that at that point it'd be easier for us to brainstorm how we can maybe co-collaborate with other organizations that fit our mission so that we can host that type of event that Kevin was just explaining to us. So by next meeting, we should have that clarity, and then we can have maybe a larger conversation on how we can start to plan some of these things and think outside the box to engage more with the community.
Through the chair, if I may, now that you mentioned the mission, I think one good practice before each of our meetings is to remind everybody of what our mission is.
Thank you, Commissioner Gonzalez. Any other comments before I move forward? Next, I'd like to provide an update on a recent meeting with Worcester Police Chief Saucier, Chief Equity Officer Kevin, and my Vice Chair Herman Chiriboga. We met last week and had a really interesting and insightful meeting where we discussed the ICE executive order, policy updates and changes, and what that really means for our community, specifically to our Latino community. In that meeting, we had a lot of really amazing insights, very informative perspectives from the chief, who we have invited today to kind of expand on that conversation and really be able to explain himself to our larger audience some of those really great topics that we discussed and talked about. And in that conversation, I can speak for myself that I left that conversation feeling a bit way more informed than I was before in what those protocols mean, how these protocols are handled, and how serious these issues are being handled by our Worcester Police Department. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce our Worcester Chief of Police, Chief Saucier, to talk about the municipal amendment so that is clear, and also to kind of discuss what those changes really mean for Worcester PD and its constituents. Chief Saucier, welcome.
Thank you for having me tonight. I'll say a little bit in the front, and then I don't know how this works, questions, and I think that'll be easier to relate. But just so everybody knows, the Worcester Police Department, we have our own protocol as far as if we were to get called to any type of ICE incident, we usually do not know when they are in the city. So that's one thing that people often believe, that we know where they're going, we're with them. That couldn't be further from the truth. We do not know when they're here. We often get called after the fact, and that's when we respond. And again, you know, our responsibilities are to preserve the peace, address violations of state and local laws, prevent criminal activity, and facilitate traffic flow. That's the only reason we're there, preserve the peace. We do not question as far as whether it's a judicial warrant, or we don't have the expertise to go in. And number one, we do not supervise federal authorities. We have no supervision responsibilities with them. But as part of our protocol is, if we were to get called to a scene, the first things we do is communicate with the dispatcher, describing that scene, if there's any potential threats and any immediate resources needed. How many personnel do we need? Are there people taking the street? Things we need to know besides just what the ICE officers are doing. We have to know the community at large to make sure nobody gets hurt. The first arriving officers will ensure the safety of all persons present, using the same policies and regulations concerning crowd management. So we have a separate policy, which all our policies are online, that concerns how we manage any type of crowd that we respond to. And again, if we're called there, there's a supervisor who's going to go. Usually it's the highest ranking supervisor working that day that's on scene. They will go to the scene and they're going to contact whomever the supervising agent of that federal entity that's requesting, whoever is there, whether it's ICE, Department of Homeland Security, whomever, our supervisor is going to go and make contact with their supervisor. That does a couple things. Number one, it helps to realize they are in fact the police, which is a big concern in the community. But again, we can't tell them whether or not they're going to effect an arrest based on whatever warrant they have. So as a regular citizen cannot impede the federal government as far as any type of these ICE arrests, we can't do it either. So we're in the same boat as you, because, you know, the U.S. Constitution, there's a supremacy clause. They basically have more power than the local police because they are the federals. With that, after we determine who's who on scene, and again, that would probably be the highest ranking official, and they're going to communicate the policies that we have and the expectations of the Worcester Police Department to that ICE official. As everyone knows, in Massachusetts, including the Worcester Police, we do not enforce any type of civil law, including immigration laws. We can't do that. We do criminal. That's all we do. Mass General Law 4198 gives us our authority to do criminal law, and that's it. So we cannot be involved in that. We don't ask people, you know, if we pull somebody over, we do not ask them what their status is. We have policy-specific, bias-free policy, and Kevin helped write that for us. So his group helped us through Human Rights Commission to come up with some of these policies, and that's one of them. So we cannot ask people their immigration status. We don't investigate people based on immigration status. Again, that's civil. The only time we get involved, if it's a federal thing, and I'll give you an example. Last week, we had a gun raid where we got over 30 weapons off the street in one incident. We did that by combining our efforts with the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, which is a federal law enforcement branch. So we work with them to do those type of operations to make our community safer. And again, anytime a civilian calls, what we don't want is people calling 911 saying, is that ICE over there? Because that's not part of this either, right? We can't, I've been in meetings where people wanted us to give locations of our unmarked cars away. We cannot do that for officer safety purposes. But I'm here to tell you that we have certain guidelines that we're following, and again, any type of civil enforcement is not what the Worcester Police Department's doing. Any questions?
Through the chair, if I may. The only concern that I have with regards to the warrant statements is, what if someone comes and kidnaps one of our fellow citizens and that person is not protected, and it's just a person that looks like, they are part of the feds, and it's not the case. I mean, what is it that is going to protect our citizens if not a warrant? A warrant either from the judicial or whatever it is, but something that legitimizes the act of taking a person into custody.
So, through the chair, when you are in a public space, they don't need a judicial warrant. That's why, if we're called, we're going to attempt to identify whomever's on scene. Number one, they're not going to come by themselves. They're going to be in cars that are usually not Massachusetts plates, but that's not always. They're going to have multiple people with them. They are dressed in a certain way, and I know a lot of people say, well, you can buy that online. When I see a police officer, I know by their equipment, usually, whether or not it's a real police officer. Because there's certain equipment you have and how you wear it, which determines that you are a police officer. As far as judicial warrant, if they're going to go into your home, they need a judicial warrant. Again, and this is, it's very hard to explain this because as local police, we do not have the authority to say, no, you're not going in that house. We can't do that. That's, as far as I know, I haven't heard of any circumstances in Worcester where they've been in somebody's house and just went in and took somebody. I don't know. I have not heard that. But again, if somebody's at your door and they're knocking, we will come. We are here to serve the community, right? We're not going to not show up. We're definitely going to be there. So if that's a fear, because that is, it's very concerning, absolutely, we will be there.
So through the chair, if I may ask, so again, just so I understand, could you describe then what is the protocol that as a regular citizen, anybody regardless, needs to follow or is recommended to follow in the event that there is a suspected, I don't want to call it visit, but a suspected operation of getting someone because of immigration status? What is, with relation to the police department, what should be the steps that a regular citizen seeing something like that should follow communicating with you or not. I just want more clarity with regards to the step-by-step that a regular citizen should follow when something like that happens.
Through the chair, the Mass Attorney General put out a nice brief talking about what you should and should not do if you are just a person observing. And that's what they recommend, observe. You can record on your phone, you can yell anything you want at them. Do not interfere, do not put your hands on a police officer, do not go in front of a car and try to stop it from moving. Those things are crimes, and you cannot do that. If you have concerns, and on our website, and we spoke about this, worcesterma.gov, I have a bunch of different questions on there, frequently asked questions, both in English, Spanish, and I believe in Vietnamese, that tells different things that you should do and look out for. If somebody in your family is arrested, there's different numbers on there for you to call to find out where they're at. But as far as a bystander, you just cannot interfere with what they're doing. You can call us, you can record, like I said, you can ask them questions, but you cannot go in the middle of an affray and put your hands on people or try to block cars with your body.
Thank you.
So through the chair, I do have two questions, and one of them you touched on a little bit. You mentioned the phone numbers. So one of the questions was, what is the protocol, police department protocol when you are called into this, let's call it a scene or whatever, and a family member is, taken away? What is the protocol in terms of the family members or the minors that might be left in the home, in terms of like connecting them with services and things of that nature? So what protocol do you follow to help the family that stays behind? So that was, and then I'll let you answer, then I'll have a second question. Yeah.
Sure. If we're called to the scene and there's young children there, we'll do as we always do. We'll call the department that oversees that, and they will bring somebody out there. Somebody will respond from the department to look after children. Again, we're obviously hoping this doesn't happen, but sometimes we go to different scenes and parents get arrested, and we have to make that call. We do a thing called the 51A, which it's kind of not related to this, but if a child is in the home and there's an arrest, our priority is that child. So we have to reach out to those social service agencies to make sure the child's okay. So if that were to happen, again, call us. We'll go there and we'll do everything we can to make sure those children are all set.
Thank you. And through the chair, my second question is more about data. I don't know if Worcester collects or keeps track of how many incidents, I guess, the police department has seen or being called on in terms of related in particular to ICE in Worcester. I don't know if you have those numbers. I was just wondering.
Through the chair, everything that comes in as a call, like we do about 160,000 calls a year. When those calls come in, they get classified as a certain thing, check on the welfare, disorderly person. So you calling saying ICE is on Main Street, that would be like an assist a citizen. We would have to go through all those calls and get that data. But I can tell you right now that every single shift, at the end of that shift, I get a report on everything that happened within that 8 hours for 24 hours. And I can tell you, I have not seen, except probably on one hand, how many incidents of ICE has been in the city where we were called. Very, very few.
Commissioner Diaz, do you have any questions?
I do. I have two questions as well. My first question goes to a point that you had made about if an individual calls 911 and they are concerned that an ICE agent or an ICE operation is happening, that you, or rather the police department, cannot confirm whether those individuals are agents or not. Am I stating that correctly first?
Through the chair, I'm trying to, it's tough to hear in here. Are you saying just by the phone call, we're trying to determine that, or we're going to the scene?
So I think to clarify, I was just looking for clarification as to if an individual were to call 911 concerned that, there are individuals out in the community, in their neighborhood that they are seeing, and they're calling because they're concerned of that the police department cannot confirm or cannot tell them that they are or are not ICE agents.
Through the chair, if we get called, we're going to respond. And if we make contact with those individuals, we will try to find out what they're doing, because there are, there's, besides ICE, there are other people that try to, there are people that, we have calls for people impersonating police. So that's, I've been here 32 years, and we've always gotten those calls. But the initial response, if on scene and we're requested for assistance from the community, we're going to make contact with their supervisor and ensure that what they're doing is what they're supposed to be doing. But again, we cannot interfere. I can't ask them where your warrant is, nothing like that. But by talking to them, we will know whether or not it's a police officer or not.
I appreciate that. Yeah, totally understand that you guys cannot interfere. I think my question was more on just how do you, once someone does call and you are aware that it is ICE operating in the neighborhood, how do you put the individual at rest that, it is state actors engaging in the community? Can you say that? Can you say, it is a lawful operation that's happening, or do you just say we're handling that?
Through the chair, so this is a complex situation. If they are attempting to identify where a person lives and this guy's wanted for murder, we're not going to go out and tell whomever calls that people are, federal agents or local police are doing surveillance of a certain address, because that's how police officers get killed. I don't know if I'm answering that correctly. If you call up and say, hey, there's a white SUV on the corner of Main and Piedmont Street, can you let me know if that's ICE? We cannot do that.
Yeah, through the chair. I think I understand that details can be provided, right? You also don't want to affect the investigation that's happening. But whether a broad statement can be given, like, we're aware of that situation, there's nothing to be worried about. Like, could that be something the 911 operator can let the community know, or that particular person that's calling?
You'd have to take that on a case-by-case basis. Again, I don't want people to think that anytime they call the police, we're just going to say, yeah, that's so-and-so, because we can't do that, because that is interfering. If I'm giving away a person's location that's doing a surveillance, I'm interfering with their investigation.
Okay. On that, so to my second question, being that, as you stated, that you guys don't get notice of when ICE comes into the community, how then do you guys become aware that an operation is happening in the community? Or how soon does that happen?
Through the chair, again, there's only been a couple incidents. I know maybe a month ago, somebody called, said somebody was knocking on my door. We responded, and there was nobody there. So I don't know if they went down the street or not, but we couldn't even confirm whether or not it even happened. So if we're not called, we do not know. We do not know if they were here or not. Unless they get in a car accident or do something that, raises the attention of people in the community, we do not know when they're actually here.
Is that concerning?
Well, again, you know, it's a law enforcement operation, so I don't know if, for the most part, if another agency's going after somebody wanted criminally, they may call us just to give us a heads up. But again, they have federal authority to do what they're doing. So as far as them going out and rounding up people, again, we have not seen it that often in the city. I know there's people that, you know, that's what they're doing during the day, is looking for that. But as far as a department, we have not been notified.
Thank you. I do appreciate the responses.
Yeah, again, sorry, it's tough to explain this stuff, like over video. I mean, it's very complex, the way this thing is working, but rest assured, we're here to make sure everybody's safe.
Through the chair, if I may just comment. Go ahead.
Through the chair, no, I mean, to that comment, yeah, I totally understand. I think the dynamic of state versus the federal agencies is definitely a complicated thing. I think my concern often is just how do we assure, how does, you know, the city, how does law enforcement, local law enforcement ensure that citizens are, that they feel safe in their community when, and again, I get the dynamics, I get that state can't interfere with federal agents, but that does put a strain on the relationship between the police department and the community, because the community is trusting police to respond when they're afraid. And when the state or local officers can't really give them much information or can't really do anything, I'm sure, you know, you are aware that, I mean, that just creates a strain in the relationship between local police and the community. So trying to figure out how then to assure the community that, you know, they are safe is hard.
But again, you call, we're going to come. I want to make sure everybody understands that. It's not like we're not going to respond because somebody said it's ICE. We're coming. And we're going to do everything we can when we get there to make sure everybody's safe.
Are you done, Eric? Through the chair? I mean, just so I can go.
I am. Chief, thank you. Thank you so much for being here. And
Sorry, I didn't mean to sound like that, but.
no, not at all, not at all.
So through the chair, I just want to thank Chief Saucier. This must be a very hard time for the police department to be dealing with all this. So I just really appreciate your time here with us, having the patience to answer all our basic questions. But I think it's very useful, and it just says a lot about the police department that we have here in the city, that you're here today, taking the time to really go through all this, which is a huge concern for our community. So I just want to, through the chair, thank you for your time.
Thank you. And again, if any questions, go on that website. There's, I think, 15 different question and answers on there that may be able to explain better than what I'm trying to do here. And I got those from other police departments. We all merged all our information to see the best or the most important things people are asking that they need answers for.
Any other comments before I say my final piece?
Yes, through the chair, thanks, Chief, for coming. Really appreciate that. I do want to take the opportunity to make sure that we're informing and educating the public on the updated or amended executive ICE order policy through the municipality. So, Chief, I just have 4 questions, and I'll just read them one by one. For your team, when it says that the municipality shall not enter into a 287G agreement, what does that mean for the public?
Through the chair, so 287 is basically an agreement that we would go out and conduct civil immigration enforcement. And in Massachusetts, under the Lund decision, we cannot do that. So, I believe the only people that do that now have to do with prisons or jails. I'm not sure which ones, but I don't believe there are any police departments that can do that in the state.
Through the chair, thank you. So the second question, any footage captured Worcester Police Department body-worn camera on federal agents engaged in the civil immigration enforcement shall be made publicly available. What does that process look like for your team?
Through the chair, all of our body-worn camera is a public record, which can be requested, but everything has to be redacted first, meaning license plates, children, faces of children, things like that. That all has to be redacted. And then if there's a criminal investigation going, there's different parameters on what you can and cannot give out. But that's all under the public records law.
Through the chair, thank you, Chief. Last two questions. What does it mean when it says the municipality prohibits use of its property, so including spaces, parking lot, garages, for any of its ICE operations? How does that impact your team?
Through the chair, so if they were going to set up in, say, the library parking lot, just an area where everybody goes to make their game plan, they're not supposed to use those. So that came out through the city manager. The governor also put one out. I believe the Attorney General did something. So with the state police, if it's a state area, say the ice rink on Lake Ave, that's a state property. If they were to be in that parking lot, the state police would respond. So they're not supposed to be here. They know that. And we have not had any calls for anything like that.
Through the chair, thanks, Chief. The last question, and you kind of already touched on this, but one of the amendments are when responding to calls related to ICE activities, Worcester PD shall take reasonable steps to verify the individual on the scene that are federal agents. What does that look like for your team?
Through the chair, again, any call we go to, we separate the parties and try to speak with whomever's involved. We're obviously going to have an official meeting, sergeant or above. Usually in this type of case, since it's so complex, it would probably be a captain. They're going to identify whomever the boss is on the other side and find out what their reasoning for being here is, and through talking with them, we will know whether or not it's in fact a police officer, local or federal.
Through the chair, I appreciate it, Chief. I really just wanted to take the time for the community to understand what those updated amendment policy words when it comes to our ICE executive policy. So I appreciate it, Chief. Thank you.
Any other commissioners have any last comments before I say my final piece? Once again, Chief, we really appreciate you coming to the Latino Commission to talk to the people about these very important topics. We really appreciate your time. We also acknowledge that these are really intense times, and everyone is doing the best that they can. And having you here speaks volumes to at least put some of us at ease that we can call the police when some of these things happen. It may not be perfect. It may not be what we want to hear. But we do appreciate you coming here and speaking not just to us, but to everyone here in Worcester. So we really appreciate you coming here today.
Thank you. Anytime you want me back, just let me know.
Next up, I would like to introduce the Human Rights Commission leadership. We are excited to have them come here today, and I'd like to introduce two of its members, the chair and vice chair. We have Guillermo Kramer Jr., who is virtually joining us, and then we also have Vice Chair Randy Feldman, who's here in person. And they are going to come and talk to us about the Human Rights Campaign's goals, projects, and see how we can align and we can collaborate down the line. So thank you so much, both of you, for coming here today.
Thank you. Randy, I'll say a few things and then you can take over. I'm so sorry I can't be there in person. I can't thank you all enough for the work that you're doing. I am also a member of the Latino community. I was very fortunate enough to have been born in the United States, but La raza es Latina. Like my mother is Chilean and my father is Peruvian. And so grateful for the work that you all are doing for our community and for the people that that look like us, that have our culture and stuff. And so I think that that's something that's so critical, especially right now. I'm glad that you all are engaged in active conversation with the chief. That is someone who we also have active conversations with. So I think that the work that we are doing is so important right now, just given the climate. But I'll give a quick kind of rundown on me as a commissioner, but also just like the perspective of what we've been up to. And then Randy can also chime in and talk about some of the more specifics. Randy is the lawyer, and so he's the one that's got like that legal language and stuff. I kind of make things look pretty. That's kind of the best way I can describe it, but Randy will make sure that he's got the full details. So like I said, the Human Rights Commission, we meet once a month as well. Kevin and Pat are the two contacts that we have. We've had a great relationship with our Chief Equity Officer, which I'm sure you all do too. And that's been something that we're super grateful for. And our staff liaison is Pat, who is good as well. And so some of the work that we do has revolved around policing in Worcester. That has been a big chunk of our work. We have pretty active meetings with the chief of police. We haven't really touched on a monthly basis, but probably every other month we tend to have a meeting with him where we'll talk about things that are specific to things like body cameras, to things like what's happening with ICE, and so and homelessness, and kind of having those conversations and then bringing it back to the commission to see if there's anything we want to do. The other thing that's really important is kind of just key to what human rights does in general is the yearly invitation that we have with the Worcester Police Department as a whole, where it's not just the chief that comes, but it's kind of like his whole leadership / cabinet, I guess you could say. And they come in and they've got an extensive list of questions that are developed by the commissioners that focus on a variety of things, sometimes policy related, body camera related, etc. And so those conversations are kind of intense and usually are a full meeting, sometimes 2 meetings, but they're very necessary in our communities. The Human Rights Commission also did a lot at the time at the police body cameras was becoming adopted in Worcester. Like the Human Rights Commission played a really big role in that. And so that's an example of the work that we do. We also worked with the police department to implement the language policy that they now have. So the police department has a translation app that they utilize, and we helped them craft that policy. It's the best way I can put it. And so it's like, that is so important to our community, for example, and all the other communities as well that don't speak English as a first language in Worcester, but particularly with the Latino community, that was something that we were really proud to make sure that we were kind of spearheading. I'm going to shift gears and let Randy take over, because Randy can talk about the other things that we've been up to on the commission. And then I'm happy to answer kind of questions and go from there. So go ahead, Randy.
As Guillermo said, we don't usually say through the chair, but I guess you folks do. So through the chair. So as Guillermo was saying, Guillermo's a long timer. He's been there like 6 years. I've been there 3 years. And when I got on, I wasn't really sure exactly what we're going to do and what we're going to deal with. But we had an incredible concentration on the police. It was the time where the equity report of diversity, equity, and inclusion was done with the police department. That was one of the first things that came out when I was on there, and that drove the process. The need to look at policing drove the process, but then that report came out, and that was a very big moment for us. The previous chief diversity officer and the previous city manager had come to an agreement that would happen, and the people that they hired to have an equity report on the police were phenomenal. They came up from Virginia, I think it's Virginia, and it was the most complete, incredible report. So that began a lot of influencing, I would say, some backup in a way on how we're looking at the police department, other than just people's lived experience of complaining that this wasn't right or that wasn't right or this wasn't good or that wasn't good, which were all valuable. But that was a systematic look at the whole thing. And that really influenced a lot of what we did initially. Then we had a conflict with the city manager because he wanted us to go slow on the police stuff because he thought the Department of Justice was going to come out with a report. And that report would be so much more comprehensive and professional than we could ever do. So he kind of asked us, why don't you guys slow down on this and wait for that. Our commission just totally ignored that. We just went full scale into asking lots of questions about the police and concentrating on the police. So that was like what we mostly did. There was an overlay of having to do with mental illness and how that's treated with the police when they come across those kind of things. We've also had a very big movement, concentration on homelessness. Not just how the police, very little about how the police deal with it, but a touch, but more homelessness in general. That's really been a big concentration for us for a very long time. As Guillermo said about one of our great successes, and I think it was City Manager Batista, I think, started this. He and interim Police Chief Saucier and now Police Chief Saucier was all for it, it seems, that they wanted the Human Rights Commission to be a sounding board on the policies that the City of Worcester Police Department institutes or changes. And I think we looked at 4 different things so far. And it's sometimes it's a little haphazard because it's a volunteer committee within the police department that asks, that gets gets it going on what topic they'd like our input. But we were most successful on the language policy. That was the only one, I think, that we came back with concrete suggestions that they said, hey, yeah, you're right. You know, that's what we should do. That's right. And basically it came down to kind of this. We didn't like that it's just so slipshod or haphazard. If that officer speaks that language, then the whole thing goes pretty well as far as communication. And not, I'm sure if through your lived experience, you also say, sometimes they're just saying, hey, kid, you know both languages. We don't care if you're 13 years old. Someone's got to translate here because we can't communicate. And it put tremendous pressure on children and other people to do translation. And I know from being an immigration lawyer that there's some real things that go real bad in those police reports because the child is intimidated, the child doesn't know what to say, the person's language skills are not that good, and stuff is put on those police reports that's simply not true. And it has effects on that person's life, maybe forever. Case I had last Monday, even leading to deportation. It's that serious. So the police department was very good in saying, yeah, we got that. If we don't, they use their own cell phones because there aren't not official issued cell phones for many police officers. So they're forced to use their own phone, which they're happy to do in most cases. And they can then get the app or call in Language Link or whatever the new organization's called. And they can get on the spot help with translation services. And that was a great advancement, and we're all happy to do it. Before City Manager Batista set this up, or I should also say before the body cam became such a big issue, when will Worcester finally have body cams? It was not very consistent at the Human Rights Commission to meet with the police. I remember my fiance's on the commission for also like Guillermo for 6 years. And there was like, they would beg the police to come, and sometimes they'd come and they get all excited, the police are gonna come this year. Well, that's all stopped since City Manager Batista said, we want you to work together. And Police Chief Saucier said, yeah, that's a great idea. And so now this yearly meeting that we have and the preparation that goes into that yearly meeting and the follow-up that comes from that yearly meeting are fantastic and really, really helpful. We certainly were very active with the policing stuff. When it came to the DOJ report, we were, obviously the City Council is the most important body that deals with that, but we took that very seriously and presented how we saw the whole thing and made that. And now The same exact thing about a civilian review board. When the Worcester Research Bureau came out and said we want a civilian review board, there seemed to be a lot of pushback, and we also wanted to chime in and say where we stand on it, and we took a vote 5-1 that we want a civilian review board. So as I'm saying, policing has been a big part of what we're doing. Secondly, homelessness has been a big part of what we're doing. Mental illness as it interplays, drug addiction as it interplays with homelessness and policing is also been paramount in what we've taken a look at and commented on. And what we do is a lot of what you do. We have a dispute about, we are an executive board. Executive board is supposed to make decisions in some respect. An advisory board is supposed to just advise. Our executive board responsibilities have been neutered over the years. When the Human Rights Commission was created, it had subpoena power, and it was created over the issue of policing. It was created over the issue of, in the late 1960s, black people felt that they weren't being treated fairly by the police, and they thought that they had no recourse. And the Human Rights Commission was created and given subpoena power in order to stop that from occurring, where you have just one entity deciding, we listen, we don't listen, that's up to us, right? So it became a very strong vehicle for a watchdog for many years. But unfortunately for us, even though we're called an executive commission, our powers of subpoena and authority have just been pared back and back and back by the city council and earlier city managers. So in effect, a lot of times we're just an advisory board, no matter what you call us. And what we try to do as an advisory board is like what you're doing tonight. We try to just get information and learning, and we try to be able to have that publicly available to the public if anybody wants to watch the meeting or anybody wants to later on play from the city's website what the meeting was about. And of course, we always hope that the press would be interested enough in the topic that they would come to the meeting, watch it live, watch it on the webcam, or look at it on WebEx later, our teams later, and decide that that was an issue that we should write about. And that happens sometimes. So the public education value of what we do, we think is very great, especially since we don't have the authority really to make many decisions. There's other things that we've done. Raising the flag policy up in front of City Hall, that became a big thing, especially as there were controversies. Apparently, before the present administration, before our new human rights director, it was sort of whoever wants to put up a flag goes up there until someone else wants to put up a flag and just stays up there. And it was pretty haphazard. And then they decided, we've got to have a policy. And then the policy came out and people didn't really like the policy because it was just a couple days. It didn't matter when your event is. And there was a lot of controversy. So that's something that we took up. We took up a Native American thing that I thought was fascinating. No one else seemed to think it was fascinating, but I thought it was fascinating. It was a woman came to speak to us, a Native American woman, who said, you know, there's statewide some sort of events going on to try to get the state legislature, and it's moving a little, to give back property to some of the Native Americans that is not already designated. So we're not talking about what everybody hears about when it's going to be, you're going to build a casino kind of stuff, right? This is property that is in private hands or government hands now, but not given to the Native Americans that she was trying to get, and the legislature seemed to be moving on giving back some of that property. So I found that very exciting. I was sort of in the minority, but anyway, so we heard a little bit about that, did a little public education on that. And then this year, we've been concentrating a lot on immigration, as you could imagine. Two different meetings and 3 different immigration lawyers, including myself, all spoke to our commission. I brought a little something to give you. I'll give it to you at the end if you want. And it's, we did immigrants and ICE's rights. Know your rights has become a very big thing, right? So we did a lot on know your rights. And then we did a lot also on what are some of the solutions for people who don't have papers. And then we also did a lot, and I have that for you too, on the recent Trump changes, like what they are actually. So it's not just watching the news, getting a little here, having your social media, getting a little there, but a real comprehensive look at everything that the Trump administration has done, has changed, and has made worse for immigrants in our community, right? So I have that for you. And that's basically what we're doing. We have one other thing. Kevin probably doesn't want me to talk about this one, but we have one other thing. I joined the Human Rights Commission because I was so inspired by City Manager Batista's creation of the Executive Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. I knew the past person who was the director and the frustrations that she went through on not having a comprehensive body that would look at this, that had real resources, real expertise, real authority, and stature within the city to change things. And I got on this because I was so positively influenced by what City Manager Batista did, changed, and what he wanted the human rights element of that commission to do. One of the great things he said was that when there is discrimination on things that are human and civil rights, we want people in the city to not have to rely only on going to court in landlord-tenant court or MCAD, MCAD, or private lawyers to help them in discriminatory actions. And I was so inspired on that because I have plenty of clients and other people who call me and said, you know, my employer discriminated against me for this in this particular way. Can you recommend a lawyer? And I don't know any lawyers who take the plaintiff, the worker's point of view, and just say, I'll go with this, because there's no money in it generally. So I was so inspired that City Manager Batista was saying, you know, we don't want you to just have to go to court for landlord-tenants issues. We don't want you to just have to go to the state agency that takes a couple of years to even look at your problem. And we don't want you to have to try to hire a lawyer who you probably aren't going to be able to. We as a city, we're going to help. We're going to do that. So for a long time, when everybody else was doing policing, wanting to concentrate on policing, and then wanting to concentrate on homelessness, I'm like, no, no, no. I want to concentrate on City Manager Batista's recommendation that the city itself is going to help in these things, right? And right now we're going a little bit on a back and forth on whether or not that is going to be available just to city employees who are having problems with other city employees, or whether they have the bandwidth or the want or the legal authority to be able to do that to city residents, for city residents, and it was initially proposed and envisioned. So that's an open question right now, and we'll see how that all works out. But that's something else we've been working on, and we came up with an intake. We went back and forth with the law department. We have a lot of things that we go back and forth with the law department on. One thing, for instance, is we have a Human Rights Commission that's incredibly activist in doing our own research and trying to get things out there for the agenda. You just wouldn't believe how much work some people put into this kind of stuff. And we would have that on the meeting agenda so people could know what was coming and read it. And then after the meeting, we were like, hey, we're the Human Rights Commission, we count. Why don't you, we want to send that to the city councilors directly, right? And we got a lot of pushback on both of those things from the legal department. And they just said, like, listen, is it part of your minutes? You can have that great report you did as part of your minutes. If the city council wants to look at what you did, they know where your website is. They can find it, right? So we've been going back and forth on how to have a little bit more authority, because I want to be honest, there was a lot of frustration on our commission that nobody really listens to us. Like, we do all this work, and yeah, city manager gets it, he believes in it, great. They don't believe in it, great. We had a very big issue where when Kevin first came on, one of the wonderful things that he announced to us is that the city manager has decided to release the redacted police complaints to you folks, so you can see how the police complaint process works and you can make suggestions. That was over a year ago. We never got those redacted complaints that are part of the process, that are decided by the Department of Internal Affairs, BOPS it's called, in the police department, and then given to the state agency called Post. We never got what he said we were going to get. Now, we're not really sure why, and we complain vociferously over this, right? So we're not sure if he's waiting for this grand announcement of if we're not going to have a civilian oversight, we're going to have something different, but it's going to do that, and maybe those folks are going to get these reports. We don't exactly know why we're not getting what was promised for a year, but it's one of the controversial things and one of the things that makes people on our commission feel like advisory is not enough for us. You know, like we're working too hard to be advisory. We're working hard to be policy influencers, not beggars at the banquet. And right now we're feeling like beggars at the banquet, right? So that's been a big, bone of contention on our commission. So you can hear there's like some great things going on. There's been some great city support of what we're doing. Kevin comes to all our meetings. That's new for us, and we're all very grateful that he does that. So there's been tremendous city support in some aspects, and there's been tremendous disappointment in other aspects. So that's kind of our experience, I think, on the Human Rights Commission, and we kind of do what you do, and we always hope to do a little more.
And if I could just add one more quick thing, it does seem that unfortunately Randy and I won't be reappointed, and both of our term is up in the next few months. So it's really unfortunate, obviously, because we do like the work that we do, and we're grateful that you all are starting this conversation with us, but we don't know what the future leadership looks like for the Human Rights Commission quite yet. There's 3 of us that are probably not going to be reappointed, just given the show that the city manager had with the last 2 individuals that weren't reappointed. We just don't believe that we'll also fall into that bucket. So unfortunately, we don't really have much time left with the commission, but we obviously do encourage that this relationship strengthen and grow, and that whomever is in the position of leadership after us be someone that you all work with as well.
Yeah, if I could add something, I want to talk in reality about that, not in platitudes. We had 2 very active members who were not reappointed. And quite honestly, they were not reappointed because they didn't seem to follow the direction the city manager wanted for our commission. That's the truth. I and another commissioner, we don't want to be on the commission anymore. It's not that we're not going to be reappointed. It's that I myself think I did my time, I'm done. She has been on there 6 years, and she's like, it's just not worth it because we don't have enough power. We're like blowing in the wind here, right? So, and we don't know what's going to happen next. Guillermo's very experienced. He's been there a long time. He's a very active, wonderful member and our chair. So we don't know, what it's going to look like in the future, and we don't know. It's a thing about government that it's a philosophical choice. Does the city manager or leadership, do they want people with disparate voices who have different points of view, who challenge the system and rail against the wall and say either bring this down or agree with it? Or do they want people who will follow the direction that the city would like to go in and want people to debate the policies that will go in the direction that the city chooses to go in? It's a real choice on leadership, on what leadership means and how to do it. And I could see both points of view. Someone might say, I'm the city manager, I'm the mayor, I'm the city council, we're in charge here. You got that? So this is where we want to go. We're going to appoint you because you agree with us, right? And your criticisms only weaken us, because all we have to do is put up with the paper, and the people don't like what we do, and it takes away from the consensus and direction we're trying to build. So why would we ever appoint someone who just wails against us meeting after meeting? It doesn't make any sense. And somebody else might say, that's what strong leadership looks like. Wail away, wail away. In the end, I'm going to be the one who makes the decision, and I'm responsible for the outcome, and I'm good with where I'm at. So thank you for your opinion. We'll reappoint you, but we don't have to listen to you. We make the final decision. That's my view of leadership. That's not everybody's view of leadership, and it's a debate, right? So that's a big part of what's going on with our commission as well, in my point of view.
Through the chair, if I may. Thank you for your candid statements and your story and your experience, sharing out your experience with the Human Rights Commission. I think it's helpful, at least for me, to know the dynamics that, happen between an advisory commission and those who appointed us. Very helpful information. It's not going to make me resign from my commission position quite yet, but I just want to thank you for, the sincerity and just the experience you shared, because as a new commission, it's helpful. So, thank you.
Any other comments from the commission?
One of the things, Madam Chair, if I may, one of the things that I think is really important to stress is that when the introduction of the LGBTQ Commission and the Black Commission was introduced, which both commissions are still very much in the creation form, I personally was somewhat against the creation of them. And let me explain why. The reasoning that I had behind it was because I felt that as the Human Rights Commission, which with the title, with the actual backing that we are supposed to have as a commission, I felt that we weren't being met at 100%. And the last thing that I wanted was people from communities to feel that as well. And so my biggest fear with the creation of new commissions, particularly those that are representing minority communities, is how are they listened to? What genuine, not necessarily power, but advancement can they help create in our city? And so I guess my biggest takeaway for you all is, as someone who's been on a commission for 6 years now and will most likely be departing, don't think that your work doesn't matter, because oftentimes it feels like we're talking to deaf ears, right? It feels like no one's actually listening. It feels like we don't have a proper press that is actually talking about the work that we are doing. We are all volunteering our time. None of us are actually getting paid for this work, right? We do this because we care about our city. We care about the people that look like us. We care about the people that fall under our umbrella. And I think that that's the part that I often worry about, how commissions and advisory boards are kind of handled, maybe not just in Worcester, but beyond, right? But I'm focused on Worcester. And my hope is that we figure out a way how to make commissioners and advisory board members feel more appreciated, but also more heard.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Diaz, any comments?
Through the chair, yeah, thank you both for being here and for your comments. I can totally understand your point of view, Guillermo. So I appreciate you sharing that as well. I don't have any immediate questions or comments. I think I'm just still processing it. Just one thing I want to ask regarding the immigration, Know Your Rights, and the laws that are changing. Is there a live version of that online that someone could access or that the public can get to? Considering that under this administration, laws are kind of constantly changing.
So there is. I forgot the meeting date that this occurred. So I would say it was. Probably in January. I think it could have been December, but I think it was in January. But if you ever wanted me to come and make a presentation to your commission, I would be happy to do that. So this is, I'll give you in writing what it is, but I give this presentation quite often in churches in different places. And if you ever wanted me to come and give the presentation, I'd be happy to. So, but it is on the website, and it is on the, if you look up the Human Rights Commission, and it was I'd say about 6 weeks ago, I think, something like that.
Thank you, Randy.
Yeah.
Through the chair, this is more of a question for Kevin. Can the city or can that particular, like, know your rights be something the city can have listed on their website as like a resource for individuals who wanted to get more information on that?
Through the chair, Commissioner, I can look that up. I know we've hosted workshops on Know Your Rights. We've done one internally for the municipality and also externally. Let me connect with communications to see what can go on the website and what can't.
You know, it's one interesting thing is, as I said, we wanted to have some of this material in advance of meetings so people could read it, besides just the commissioners. And it was determined that, no, you can't, but you can have it as part of your minutes. But just this past Tuesday, City Councilor Gary Rosen, he made the same demand that we did on the Human Rights Commission, that these things should be posted, right? So I don't know if Kevin will have any luck trying to get this to be distributed, widely distributed. It's obviously appended to our minutes from that meeting. It's the same thing I'm going to give to you. But whether it could be more broadly disseminated or not is anybody's guess, other than as part of our own minutes. Yeah.
Through the chair, for that question specifically, when it comes to like resources, I think each board has their page. So that's what I'm really thinking about. So if there needs to be like Know Your Rights and having material on that, I may be able to at least get it on our page in terms of resource. But in terms of how we do agenda minutes, that's a real structured process on that end.
But through the chair, just to clarify, that would have to be after the meeting, not in advance. I think what I hear from Randy is that you wanted to have these materials provided in advance, and I think that wasn't possible, that it had to be buried in the minutes and being obviously shared after the fact that the meeting happened. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I think what Kevin's getting, if I got it right, is yes, that's true. What you said is what I said, and it was true. But that what you're saying is that each commission has its own page.
Right, through the chair, so the question that I'm answering, what Commissioner Diaz had asked is how do we get access to this information for Know Your Rights? I'm specifically talking about that material. That may possibly, we may be able to put that on our website. So each board under the Executive Office of DEI has their page. That can be a resource page. I'm thinking about AAC. They have guidelines when it comes to disability etiquette, and they have a resource page. So maybe something along those lines I can probably work with and do. But when it comes to like the agenda minutes, that's a real structured process that the municipality follows.
And for our meeting, two of the things I provided were government issued. One was the Attorney General, as Chief Saucier mentioned, Attorney General Andrea Campbell. She did something much like what I did, but better, I suppose. Mine's more on the ground, like this is what happens on the ground. Hers is more like here's everybody's rights, theoretically, and as that affects on the ground. And then City Manager Batista, before the most recent, last week, ordinance where he added what else the city's going to do to not assist ICE. He issued two documents right after Eureka Street. Right after that happened, he issued two documents about what the city is going to do and not going to do, what it can do and will do, and what it can't do to protect immigrants. So those are publicly available. All those, his two ordinances now, his three ordinances, and the Attorney General of Massachusetts' stuff, that's publicly available, but the more play it gets, good, the better. And then the stuff that I wrote up is probably a little bit more, less legalistic, more a little bit from the heart. It's literally, I think it's all accurate and good, but it's a little less formulistic and a little bit more, you don't have to be a lawyer to take a bite of this thing, right? And you'll see, I'll give you these and you'll see what I'm talking about.
Thank you so much, Randy, for all of the information. Guillermo, thank you so much for zooming in and filling us in on all the great work that you're doing. Thank you for leaving all these resources. That's really helpful. And we look forward to continuing the conversation. Thank you so much, Randy.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, next, I'd like to entertain a motion for our next meeting, either March 12th or March 26th at 5:30.
Let me check my agenda if I may. March 12th or March 26th. For some reason, I think March 12th, I have a conflict.
Through the chair, I'm flexible on Thursdays so long as I can join virtually. I have a class right after this, so that's kind of why I have my limitation. So unfortunately, I can't be there in person.
No problem. We appreciate you zooming in.
The 12th is better.
I can do the 12th as well.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to confirm March 12th at 5:30 for our next meeting. And for those who cannot attend in person, there'll be a Zoom link provided. I will ask for a second motion for March 12th at 5:30.
I will second that.
On that motion, I'll have Kevin take a roll call.
Okay. Motion for the next meeting, March 12th, Thursday at 5:30 p.m. Laura Martinez,
Yes.
Herman Chiriboga, Eric Diaz,
Yes.
Deborah Gonzalez,
Yes.
Pablo Santiago, Jenny Guzman.
Yes.
Thank you. That's the roll call for next meeting, Thursday, March 12th at 5:30 p.m.
Great. Next, I'll make a motion to adjourn February 26, 2026 Latino Advisory Commission meeting. May I have a second motion?
I second that motion.
Kevin, take the roll call, please.
Roll call to adjourn the meeting at 6:44 p.m. Laura Martinez,
Yes.
Herman Chiriboga, Eric Diaz,
Yes.
Deborah Gonzalez,
Yes.
Pablo Santiago, Jenny Guzman.
Yes.
All right, roll call to adjourn the meeting officially at 6:44 p.m.
Bye, Eric.
Bye, Eric. Sorry, I didn't mean to
Have a
say
good
what I
one.
said, the way it sounded.
No, hey, never apologize. No, I didn't take any offense to it. Have a good evening, y'all.
Bye.